Hello there folks, I'm back again with another speed paint for you guys, and this week I've got another Pokemon Fusion video. I don't think I've done one of these since the very beginning of this channel, so I guess we're a little overdue for one. This time I'm going to be fusing ALCREMIE with a bunch of different Pokemon. I think ALCREMIE, and in the base of its design already having so many variants, it just has a lot of potential for a lot of really cool fusions. So, without further ado, let's get into the speed paint. The very first fusion we have here is ALCREMIE fused with Yamask, specifically the original Unova form. While I do like the Galarian form as well, I thought the Unova form was just really cool because of the gold elements, and I really wanted to incorporate the mask as the decor that's on the sides of its head, so I thought that would be a lot of fun. I tried to make the eyes have those tear shapes that Yamask's face has, and of course, like I said, the masks are the little decor or extra snacks on the side. I like to imagine maybe those are not literal gold, but instead some sort of candy that resembles gold, or maybe has even some of that edible gold foil on the outside. For the cream, I would say it's a black color with red accents. I thought it looked a little too flat with just the black, and ALCREMIE in its base design has a lot of warm accents on it. So I thought I would add red to match the eyes and match the other warm colors within the palette, and just add a little bit more visual interest so it didn't seem so flat. Plus it gives it more of an icing-like texture to add those red stripes. Overall, this one's an extremely simple design, but I'm still really happy with it. I think it looks appropriately like Yamask and ALCREMIE at the same time, while leaning towards the ALCREMIE side that I'm aiming for with these fusions. And overall, I'm really pretty happy with this design. Next up, we have ALCREMIE fused with Meloetta, specifically its Aria form, with the iconic green and blue notes. I had a lot of fun with this one. Instead of having two decorations like every other fusion I did for this video, this one only has one, and that is the headphone-like shape that is on the side of Meloetta's head. I used that as decor on the left side of this little ALCREMIE, and I thought it would just make a really cute thing to change up the silhouette and make it look both more like ALCREMIE and more like Meloetta. For the colors, I did a lot of green on the top to mimic Meloetta's hair, and I also made the band around its neck, that little bit of cream, I made that green as well to mimic the green band that's on Meloetta's torso. I made the bottom part white to mimic Meloetta's legs, and for the face, I did a stripe around the middle. And that's because on Meloetta's forehead, there's this sort of blue gem there that's supposed to look like a tiara or some other type of jewelry, and there's a line going through it through the center. And originally I thought about putting that on the actual forehead / whipped cream top of the ALCREMIE, but I thought it looked a little bit too top heavy like that. So instead I used that sort of visual language with the eyes, making them look a little bit more like the jewel since Meloetta's eyes are blue anyway. Ultimately, I think that was a smart decision. I think it ended up looking way more balanced like that. And this design I am honestly very happy with. I had a lot of fun drawing the musical staff hair and making it simultaneously look like hair but also like cream. And I had a lot of fun trying to justify the way that Meloetta's colors are placed on its body on ALCREMIE, who has a very different body type since it doesn't really have legs and it has a much more stout and I guess more of a chunky build, whereas Meloetta is very much like a stick figure. So while they have a lot of similarities, they also have a lot of differences. So this character design challenge proved to be, well, a challenge, but I'm still pretty happy with the results. I think this looks appropriately like both Pokemon, and honestly, this might be my favorite of the batch. Next up, we have ALCREMIE fused with Poipole. And Poipole is one of my favorite Pokemon. I'm a huge fan of Poipole and Naganadel, honestly. Between the two of them, I think Naganadel is my favorite, but both of them are really cool, classic James Turner Pokemon, and I am just a huge fan of Ultra Beasts in general, so I thought it would be a lot of fun to take Poipole's very bright and vibrant palette and apply it to ALCREMIE, since ALCREMIE is generally pretty muted, as in pastel in its official versions. It's not that vivid. Even the rainbow version is still a very pastel take on a multicolor Pokemon, which is totally fine in canon. But I thought for my own designs, I would go very, very vivid just for fun, because, I just thought that would be more interesting. So here we have the needle-like appendages used as the decor, kind of similar to the abdomen on Naganadel actually. I tried very hard to incorporate the shape language that Poiple uses on ALCREMIE, which again was a challenge. Just like with Meloetta, Poiple and ALCREMIE have very different builds, so figuring out how to segment the body in ways that felt similar to both Pokemon was a bit of a challenge. One of my favorite parts of this design would have to be the face. I think Poiple has a very cute and yet also very alien face with its glowing eyes and blue mouth, and I just think it's really cute, so obviously I had to do something a lot like that with the ALCREMIE. I ended up pointing the accents on the eyes in a different direction than with Poiple just because I thought it flowed into the face better, but ultimately I'm still pretty happy with it. With the primarily warm colors, that blue face really adds a lot to just make it pop and make it really stand out compared to the rest of the design. And while Poiple is a very tough and like arthropod type design, a very hard exoskeletal sort of Pokemon, ALCREMIE is, I mean, by definition, an extremely soft and gooey Pokemon, so it was kind of interesting combining those two types of shapes together. And ultimately, I think I'm pretty happy with this. I think this is a pretty good middle ground. I'm very happy with the colors. They were a lot of fun to work with. And I think it's just a very nice little design. The next fusion we have is ALCREMIE with Silicobra. I think Silicobra is a pretty underrated Pokemon. I think it is maybe the cutest snake Pokemon that they've come out with so far. I just love its like little chunky body. I love its sad but not that sad eyes. It's just like so cute. It's just such a cute snake Pokemon. It honestly reminds me a lot of my snake. It's just a lovely little creature. Anyway, for this one I ended up making a very sad looking ALCREMIE fusion, and honestly by the end of it I feel like it looks a bit like a modern Trolls character. Is that a weird thing to say? I actually haven't seen any of the newer Trolls movies. In fact, my only experience with Trolls as a franchise is like the mid-2000s one where it's like the multicolor hair girls that like have magic orbs or whatever. I don't even remember. I could probably find my old DVDs somewhere in my study, but yeah, for some reason or another, this design ended up reminding me a lot of modern Trolls by the end of it, which I think is kind of funny because I wouldn't say I think about Trolls whenever I think about Silicobra or ALCREMIE. It's just a funny thing that just happens when you hit the middle of those two. Since this is an ALCREMIE fusion mostly and not Silicobra, I really leaned into ALCREMIE's body using a lot of Silicobra's colors. For the accessories slash little snacks on the top, I went with pebbles because I thought that would be an appropriate thing to go with for this ground type fusion. And of course I had to do those like sand stained tear like eyes, which I think really adds to the sad look. And man, this guy looks so goopy, so sad. And honestly, one of the things that makes it look the most sad are those eyebrows. Silicobra has really cute chunky brows that honestly don't make it look that sad in its design. But when combined with the bangs and the tears with the ALCREMIE fusion here, especially with the posture I decided to give it for a little bit of fun, to make it look a little more bummed out, oh boy, those eyebrows really exaggerate that sad expression in a way that just put the smile on my face. It's just such a funny little character design. So while this one's a little bit more of an unconventional take on the fusion between these two Pokemon, I'm still pretty happy with it. I think it's a very fun design. Next up, we have ALCREMIE fused with Ampharos. Ampharos has to be one of my favorite electric-type Pokemon. I just love its stripes, its body, it's just such a fun shape to draw every time. And I had a lot of fun trying to incorporate Ampharos-like language into the design of ALCREMIE. Just like with many of the others, ALCREMIE has a very different body shape compared to Ampharos. And it was kind of interesting trying to figure out how to do the body and the tail and things like that with this body of ALCREMIE. ALCREMIE doesn't exactly have ears or like a tail or legs or arm. Like, it's a lot of it is so different to the way Ampharos is built once you sit down and try to draw a fusion of the two. So I had to get a little creative with this. I ended up doing the black and yellow stripes on most of the hair-like protrusions of its body, and I went with sort of a black collar for it since Ampharos has a bunch of stripes on its neck, and while ALCREMIE doesn't exactly have a long neck, it does have that frill, so I decided black on that part would make it look appropriately Ampharos-y. That, and I thought with the black accents on the parts with the baubles, I thought it kind of made a little bit of a smiley face, which I thought would be kind of fun. And for the baubles, those glowing red orbs that Ampharos has, I took some liberties with those too. Obviously, those are the candy decorations that you see on ALCREMIE's head, but I also put some on the Billy to add a little bit more visual interest, even though that's not a trait present on either Pokemon originally. I just thought it would be a fun thing that makes it look a little bit more like a candy or like a sculpture. And I thought I don't know, there's something very like gingerbread man button about it that I think is pretty cute. I had a lot of fun coloring this. These sort of translucent orbs are honestly some of my favorite things to do, and I love drawing stripes, so coloring this thing in was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with the glowing red, I had a lot of fun with the stripes. It was just a very fun design to work on. I made its belly very white, just like Ampharos, and I exaggerated the amount of white just to give a little more contrast, a little more, say it with me, visual interest. And ultimately, this was just a lot of fun to work on. These are Pokemon that are very hard to put together, but I'm still pretty happy with how they came about, and this design suitably looks like both. The last fusion we have for today is ALCREMIE with Togepi. These are both, I guess, technically food Pokemon. I don't know how much Togepi is supposed to be, like, a food Pokemon. It's obviously supposed to be just like a chick hatching from an egg, but a lot of its design is very classically, like, hard-boiled egg, Easter egg sort of vibe, so I don't know. Something about them really felt like they were meant to go together. I used a lot of cracked egg type shapes to make this thing have a bit of a chunkier silhouette, if that makes sense. Like, a lot of Togepi is the toga part, the pointy part, the spikes. So I tried to incorporate that into some of its designs by making the hair frills a little pointy on the end, making it seem like the cracked egg on the bottom. Unlike Togepi's design, who has a crack and then open on the top, I decided that with ALCREMIE having the amorphous lack of legs and just sort of being a slug on the bottom, I thought it would be more fitting to have the egg open downwards into the amorphous sort of yolky, whatever that is, that Togepi has. I thought that would be more fitting for the shape language of ALCREMIE. And of course, little baubles on the top, that's gotta be some classic Togepi-like eggs. I like to imagine maybe they're like Cadbury chocolate eggs or something like that, like those classic little candy-coated chocolates that you might see around like Easter or something like that. I honestly think that these guys all have a very sweet smell that is each different from each other, and this one I can very vividly picture in my mind as being like chocolate Easter candy. For this palette, I went with a lot of primary colors. I ended up going a little more contrasty between the white shell and the sort of yolky, I don't want to say flesh because that sounds gross, but like the more yolky part of the body. I think in Togepi's original design, they're not quite as contrasty, but I really didn't want them getting muddy or lost, so I went with a more yellowy, slightly darker direction. And of course, lots and lots of red and blue accents, just like the egg, and I was a lot more generous with those accents on this design than Togepi actually is in its design. Most of Togepi is that predominant white and yolky color, whereas for this design I thought it would be more fun and more pastry-like and more candy-like to really go ham on the colors. Plus, I mean, it's just more visually interesting. I had a lot of fun with this one. I really think that these Pokemon go together quite well. And a lot of their shapes honestly make so much sense once you put them together. It really makes it feel like this was a fusion made in heaven. Honestly, it was just a lot of fun to work on this design. And of course, at the end, I decided I was going to go through and shade everything. I thought it would make them a little more interesting to look at. I thought it would be fun to sort of practice my semi-Pokemon style shading. Honestly, it doesn't look that much like the official Pokemon style, but I just think it's a lot of fun to do. It's a lot of fun practice. I've been using Cursed Eye Fakemon. They have these wonderful brushes, and I don't use their actual brush. What I like from their pack is their blender for Clip Studio Paint, so here you get to see me using that in some of these shadings. I had a lot of fun with this. It was just kind of fun to go through. It was like a victory lap for this drawing session, just Going through, adding a little bit of shading, a little bit of highlights to each of these guys, it makes them look a little bit more polished, even though ultimately, shading all 6 of these took me just over 20 minutes, I think, so even though it's not a lot of time added, it honestly adds a lot of polish, so I think it was worth doing. Plus, when I offer these as adoptables, I'll offer both a shaded and flat version in each of these character designs, so it gives people more to look at if they decide they want to adopt one of these designs. I really just had a lot of fun with these colors, though. I like to do shadows with a lot of warm at the edge. It really makes it look very, like, I don't know, visually delicious, I guess? I just really like a lot of, like, playing around with hues and coloring and rendering. I think it makes things look so candy-like and lovely to look at. I just love bright colors. You can tell by my everything that I do, so yeah, it was just a lot of fun to go through, add some pretty simple shading layers to these, and it just gives them a lot more polish. And with that, that is everything I've got for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching. I had a lot of fun working on these designs, and like I said during my shading section there, these designs are currently up on my Ko-fi page for adoption if you're interested in adopting one of these characters. Who knows, maybe they can be your next little Blorbo or something like that. If you would like to support me, by the way, Ko-fi is the best way to go about doing that. I have memberships on there, I have commissions, I of course have adoptables. Everything there helps me with my everyday expenses, such as my bills, groceries, feeding my pet, and many, many other things. So any support you guys can give me there would be highly appreciated. I am also trying to reach 100 subs by the end of the year. I know we're really cutting it close, but we are more than halfway there, and I think it'd be pretty cool to grow my community on YouTube here a little bit more. So if you like this video, if you like my designs, feel free to hit that sub, and I'll see you again with another speed paint very soon, since I try to post a video every week. And with that, I believe that is everything I've got for you guys today. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you again next week with another speed paint. And in the meantime, why don't you go out there and make some art?